Let's first introduce ourselves. I'm Luis Galaviz. I'm the host of the Luis Worrior Podcast. And here I am introducing my sister, my oldest sister, Marisol Galaviz. Say hi.
Nice to meet you guys. I'm excited to be on the podcast today with you.
So before we started recording, we were talking about first generation guilt, right?
Yeah, we were kind of just shooting the shit to see like brief hiatus after Luis just almost died. Sorry about that.
I choked on my spit.
But that was a good start to our podcast, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we were talking about first generation guilt, Familismo.
Yes.
And what that means to us as first generation Mexican-American
Yes.
kids. So I was looking yesterday because I hadn't seen mom and dad for a while. And I felt kind of guilty about it.
Really?
But deep down I was like, why do I feel guilty? Like I shouldn't feel guilty. I just saw them a few days ago. And that kind of sent me into a rabbit hole where I started researching like, does anybody else feel this way? Like, especially being, first gen Mexican-American, the oldest daughter, like I feel like I have this obligation to put my family first. What do you think? Like, do you experience any of that guilt? Like, I think guilt can be worded in so many different ways. And in this text is like guilty for not doing what your parents want you to do or for what your family wants you to do. Do you ever feel that?
Right,
or have you ever felt that?
Yes, a lot. Especially with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because they always say, family's more important than your girlfriend. To a certain point, like, who makes me feel more at home?
And a lot of people, especially in our culture, we think that family means blood, right? Is who are you related to? Who are you blood related to? And I agreed to that to a certain extent, to a certain point. But then I've gotten older to the age where I've chosen my own family. Like I have one person, I know who you're going to say, that I chose as my partner, my best friend, not my partner, I guess just my family, part of my family. And that happens to be my best friend, right? That you've known forever since 2013, 2012. And we chose each other, like we call each other sisters. Like when we go out, people are like, are you guys related? And we're like, yeah, we're your cousins or sisters. Like that's just how we relate ourselves. And then that makes Mexicans very uncomfortable. Like if you call someone family that isn't family, it's like very, hold the phone. Yeah. They're like, blasphemy. How dare you find comfort in someone who isn't in your family. And that made me feel really uncomfortable. Because I'm a social creature. I like to talk to people. I like meeting new people. And that was really discouraged, especially like from our dad. I don't know if you ever heard dad say, you don't have any real friends. Your only friends are your family. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Did that play a role into you and your like upbringing?
Definitely. It definitely stunted a lot of my making friends at an elementary level school.
Because we were so ingrained with that, being so young. Like, I remember being in middle school and dad telling us, like, your only true friends are your family. So that definitely inhibited my social interactions when I was younger. Because I would get close to people and I would like people and I would trust them. And then I'd get to a certain point that I'm like, oh, wait, dad said not to trust anybody. Or the only people are blood.
It was borderline racism where you'd be like, don't trust these white people.
Or any race that isn't Mexican.
To give context, before like when I was born, I only knew this house that we were born and raised in. Well, I was raised in, not born in. It's a very white-oriented neighborhood. Yeah,
it's predominantly Caucasian. For those of you who didn't know, Luis and I went to, I would say, a 90% Caucasian high school.
Yes.
And that's lowballing it. Like our neighborhood is very heavily, predominantly Caucasian. Not saying there's anything wrong with that.
White retired people.
Yes, but as people of color growing in these neighborhoods, like we have to adapt. Yeah. We have to adapt. Like, no one is giving us a guideline on how to be Mexican in a white community. Nobody. Because our parents are telling us how to be Mexican. And then we have society telling us to not be Mexican. So that, is kind of trying to ride the line of like what we were going back to, before we go off on another tangent, is having friends. I feel like in Caucasian culture, networking is a big part of their personal life, right? Is to go out and have a social life or just to have friends be part of your circle. Mexicans, I I'm not going to say for all Mexicans, because I know Mexicans are really social. We're really social. Yes. We love chisme. We like going out with the comadres and stuff. But there are some that are very reserved and very kept to themselves, such as our family, that really doesn't trust anybody outside of our family, which really was kind of tough.
Or it takes a long time to warm up to people that are outside the family. For example, my girlfriend. It took a long time for my parents to start feeling comfortable around them. Especially mom, because he usually puts on this mask and he's like, okay, he's very social, but deep down he doesn't really have any biases towards my girlfriend. But with my mom, it's different because like.
For those of you who don't know, Luis has a Caucasian girlfriend.
I do have a white girlfriend,
and Luis is super Mexican, so it's like it's a culture adjustment for both of them.
Yes, where like I didn't come from a place of privilege, but my girlfriend does. Where her parents are both retired now, right when she just graduated college. Where most people, they're at that age where they graduate. Where our parents, or usually for our culture, you wouldn't retire.
No,
you wouldn't.
You work until you die.
Yeah.
And in some cases, you die while you're working, and that's a sad reality for a lot of Mexicans. We live to work. We don't work to live. And that's a hard concept that I've been trying to get around is how do I work to live? How do I escape this rat race of going home and going to work? But that's another subject.
Yes.
I want to talk about familismo, which is something that we mentioned
the guilt
at the beginning.
Of not putting your family first priority.
Yes, and that was a term that I came across on this blog. If I find the blog, I'll link it in the show notes. Or in the description box wherever you're watching this.
On the YouTube description or in the podcast thing, because we are doing recording and podcast.
But it was an interesting term, because I've heard of machismo, and I've never heard of familismo. And so I kind of went
to give a definition to machismo, what is machismo, like, to the general audience? Like, what's that?
Machismo, it is, I would define it as the putting men on a pedestal and making them the center of everything, right? Machismo is like men are the head of the household. It's more of a culture, not a definition.
Yes, it's a cultural stereotype where men are held. It's an
identity.
It's an identity where men should be held at, where they have to be tough, they have to be the money makers, they have to,
they can't show emotion, they cannot be weak. And it's a really toxic.
They don't cook.
Yes, it's a super toxic. And I've always, like, me, I've always been against that. Like, since I knew what machismo was, like, I already knew. But that's another topic we're going to have to cover in another podcast. So make sure you guys come back and listen to that podcast too. But familismo, the term that I found is just like putting family above everything, right? Even at the expense of your own mental health or at your own sake. Or of your own time. Sometimes you have to sacrifice your time, right? And I feel like our culture doesn't understand that time is valuable. Our time is valuable, which a lot of people make the jokes that are like, Mexicans are always late. Yeah, because we don't know the concept of time. We don't understand that other people have time, just like we have time, right? So we have to learn how to respect that. But that's a whole completely different subject.
So many branches.
Yeah. And coming to terms with familismo is so, like, it just hit me the other day. I was like, it is so real. Like, for example, when I was in high school, choosing to go with my friends versus staying at home with the family, it was like, oh, you're turning your back on us. You're an outsider because you chose someone over your family versus your own blood, which makes you feel bad, which plays into that familial guilt that we were talking about earlier, is that, when you put yourself first or you put your interests or your likes first before your family's, you are looked down upon. And nobody really talks about that. It's unwritten. No one says it. No one says, oh, we don't like you because you're hanging out with your friends. But you're like...
ostracized.
You're ostracized, right? You're not invited to the family functions, or you get talked shit on at the family functions. Like, I've been there, Luis. I've been there, done that. It's like, oh, where's Marisol? Oh, she's with her friends. Where's Marisol? Oh, she's with her boyfriend. Where she goes? Where's Luis? Oh, you know where he's at. Like, and it makes you feel bad. It makes you feel pretty fucking shitty.
And that's very prominent in Hispanic families. Well, prominent in ours, but I'm not sure if in all Hispanic cultures are like that. But
We're just speaking from personal experience.
This is all personal experience where we're just realizing what is a name to what we feel. Like, oh, I feel guilty for going out with my friends instead of, going out to eat dinner with my aunts with the family this time. It's like, oh, there's a word for that.
Yeah. It's just being able to put a word on how you feel. Mm-hmm. A lot of things are unwritten, unspoken. And now that I'm getting older, I'm like, oh, I can put labels on things. That is machismo. That is familismo. That is guilt. You are guilt tripping me, mm-hmm. And those are so normalized when you're younger. You just feel bad for not doing something, but you can't put it.
Because you don't know any better, right? You don't know any better.
And you just think feeling is normal, right? Uh-huh. Then you grow up and you find out that, holy shit, like, that guilt makes me feel bad. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't need to be that way. There are boundaries, okay? Word of the day today is called boundaries. And that's something that, can we talk about the lack of boundaries in Mexican families? I already aired my grievances about the boundaries mm-hmm. in a Mexican family. Do you want to talk about how you set boundaries?
How I set boundaries? Or how you're practicing? The lack of boundaries and how I'm planning to set them now. Yeah, yes. I can explain some history and how I'm trying to fix that now. Which with mostly with my parents, honestly.
And that's the hardest because you have the most intimate relationship with your parents, right? Mm-hmm. So it can be hard to say, hey, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Or I can't do that. It's hard.
Which I was, admittedly, when I was being raised, I was a people pleaser. As Marisol could tell.
We were talking about that the other day. I think
people pleasing, like you don't want to piss people off. You want to say you want to be a yes person. But the older you get, the more you learn of how important no is,
and how it shoots
and how to just how important is it when to say no at the right time,
and how to say no, right?
And how to say no, and basically
because the delivery is just as important as the message,
Yeah, because if I say no to my parents, or say like no,
they could make construe.
They'd be like, "Oh, you're talking back, huh?"
Yes. And that's something that I had to. You had the soft version of our parents. Like me, when I said no, it was like, hold the fucking phone. Who do you think you're talking to? Like, no was not in my vocabulary, which honestly snowballed into the effect of being a people pleaser. And there is a correlation. We'll talk about the pipeline from people pleaser to burnout in life, okay? Because there's a strong correlation. I've met people that do really, really well at school. They excel in the first years of school. They do really well and they're praised. They're praised for their good, for being a good girl or being a good student or for being a good learner. And then when you step out into the real world and you have to learn how to set boundaries with people, because quickly you will learn people will walk all over you. People will walk all over you. They will take advantage of you, and they will just see you as a no spine, mm-hmm. kind of person. And I learned that, bro. I went straight from high school. I kind of dabbled in college a little bit, decided that was not for me, went into the workforce, and I worked in a part of town where I was humbled very quickly. I was humbled very, very quickly.
Let's talk about that. Let's dive deep a little more into that.
Yeah, for background context purposes. So like we mentioned, Luis and I grew up in a predominantly Caucasian, very affluent neighborhood. So when I first got my real serious big girl job in corporate America.
Yeah, in corporate America. Let's say I worked taking plasma.
Yes,
that's
at
all
a
we
plasma
can go
center.
into.
I just worked at a plasma center in a very sketchy part of town, I would say.
Yes.
But it taught me a lot about boundaries. Like, people can smell weakness a mile away. And if you don't put your foot down and say, hey, especially as a young girl, that's just stepping foot into corporate America, and you have people that are 10, 20, 30, 40 years older than you that are boomers, that are your CEOs that are looking over you, and they're going to want to take advantage of you. They're going to walk all over you because they see you as, first of all, I was young. I was like 18 or 19 when I first got that job. Yeah. And they're like, oh, well, let's see what we can get away with. No, they learned very quickly that I'm not about no shit. I was like, I'm not going to do this because X, Y, and Z. Not no in a little shy, timid voice. I had to learn how to use my big girl voice and say, no, and this is why the fuck not. having that voice and trying to transfer it over to my family is so hard.
Oh, yeah.
Because saying, no, I can't see you guys today hits a little bit harder than telling your boss to go fuck himself. Like, that, it's different.
Because when it's with your boss, it's nothing personal. It's just business.
It's just business. You know? Exactly.
But when it comes to your family, they take it personally. Especially our parents, they take it to the heart. It's like it hurts them as an individual. Like, oh, my daughter's saying no. Or my son's saying no to me.
Yeah.
What did I do? What did I do? Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So they take it very personal versus just no being no. And another thing to add on to that is I don't think they know that no is a complete sentence. Let that sink in for a second. No is a complete sentence. But in growing up, you know, in this household, we had to learn how to say no, comma, why. You know, no, but this. No, because this. We had to over-explain ourselves, which... Actually,
and when you would explain, like when they explain, they want the reasoning why, so they can poke holes in your reasoning. And then you have to back up that reasoning with more, like to fill those holes with flex tape. Be like, no, this is why my reasoning's bulletproof. And then they'd be like, but you missed a spot here.
Yes. And so asking for permission,
and they'd be like, they'd bend that favor what they do, be like that. They'd bend that no as far as they can to get it to a maybe to a yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You are
a maybe is a yes, a yes is a yes, a no is
also a yes.
Like that's a 60% a yes.
Yeah, like you will say
a little pressure, and they'll get you to say yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. So no, like I don't know. No is a complete sentence. Let's just put it that way. And over-explaining yourself as an adult is really hard to do. Like, no, I've learned how to just be like, no, why not? Because I don't want to. And that's good enough. I've learned how to respect that. You know? Like when you don't come to family dinners or when you don't do certain things, because I know you have your own life. And that's so hard for parents to understand, is that individualization from your parents is hard.
It is.
It is hard. Especially like going back to the cultural thing. In Mexican families, you are identified with your family. You and your family are one unit. There's no individuality. There's no separation.
It's the Galavizes.
It's the Galavizes or nothing.
It is this family. It's like, you know, the Morales, the Reeses.
Yeah.
They are units.
Yes.
Unless you get like physically married, and even if you get married like to two different families, there's still sides to the family. It does not become
no overlap.
Family.
It's your side of the family and my side of the family. And if there's any mingle, it gets weird and awkward. Because why? Because families are like teams for us. Like we have to root for our own team. Mm-hmm. We can't participate in other sports, right? Like you have to stay on that team and play that sport forever, which is really hard, Luis. Like as a black sheep with the family, bro, the first thing I wanted to do when I was 18 was like not seek the approval from my parents for anything. I went and did every single thing that I was not allowed to do when I was young because there was no individualization. You know, I was taught to be a certain way up until that I learned being an adult, like, I can do what I want. That was a really crazy revelation for me. Believe it or not, everybody who's listening to me right now is probably like, dude, you could have been done whatever you want. Not under the conditioning that we were put under. The circumstances and the environment that we were put under, it was very much, you leave this household and like, that's it. There's no turning back. You leave and whatever happens in the real world happens in the real world. As long as you live under a house, I can protect you. Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's what haciendas were big back in Mexico because they like once you got old enough and you found a spouse, you wouldn't go to their house unless you're a woman. Then you'd go into their house. But if you're a man, you bring them back and you add a room. You add a room to your house.
Yes.
And to give you an explanation, my dad's hometown back in Mexico, his mother that passed away, our grandmother, had a house that had like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rooms.
Yeah, and it actually didn't start that way, right?
No,
it started off with one room.
It started off with one room.
Just the kitchen and the living room.
It. Yep.
Yeah, and then the little bathroom outside.
Yeah.
That was not a part of the house. Yeah. And like you said, as they started
just kept
growing,
adding on, and then like the back family and like the backyard family house,
same thing.
And the thing is, like, they added another family in the backyard.
Yes.
That's technically part of the family, but it's separated. It's like it's far enough for the family. It's like, okay, these are two kind of separate families.
Yes, yes, but you're still there.
Yeah.
It's still. Our family in Mexico lives on the same street.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same road. I'm not even telling, like, there's no neighbors that are separating us. It's your family is your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing that culture over here to America is very weird because in American culture, as soon as you turn 18, it's bye-bye, buddy. You're going to college. You got to live on your own. And that's something that I was looking forward to. Something that I kind of saw in the movies and I kind of romanticized it. And I was like, ooh, I can't wait to go live on my own and go to college.
Dream.
Yes. I was swayed out of that very quickly. And I regret not applying to colleges out of state. But again, that guilt that we're talking about, I mean, it wasn't upfront like, we don't want you to go out of state. It was, if you don't have to go out of state, don't. Like, it was like, if you can stay as close as you can to family, do it.
It was subliminal messages.
It was it was very passive aggressive. Like, are you sure you want to go there? It's so far. Are you sure you want to go over there? It's so cold. Are you sure you want to go over there? You know, we won't be able to call you at this time. Like, and I got sick of that. I got sick of that shit. I was like, you guys want me to go to college? Fine. I'll fucking go to college here. Like, I'll just go down 25 minutes down the street so you guys won't be bitching at me for leaving across the country. And now I'm kind of like, maybe it would have been better if I would have just ripped the Band-Aid off and moved across the country to college, you know, and then came back as an individualized person and have my own identity and be like, hey, mom and dad, this is me, not who you guys wanted me to be. This is me, you know, and that's what moving across the country, I feel like would have done for me. Not even moving across the country, like moving away. Not
moving
necessarily
far enough away where you can't see or talk to them.
Where you don't have any obligation, because that's something that I feel living here in the same city as my parents is I have that familial obligation to go see them, to go help them when they need it, to, you know, I just feel that obligation just being in the same vicinity. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that?
Yes.
See?
I still live with them right now. I'm 21 and I'm living in the basement, but you know, I have that.
You gotta do what you gotta do, Luis. You know.
I'm still going through college.
Yeah, exactly. You have a reason to. And the reason that I didn't stay is because my mental health was suffering. When I started to individualize myself, that's when Dad and I started to bump heads harder and harder. Is the more I tried to become my own person, the more he was like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you want to become a person, don't do it under my roof, you know. And that's something that I think you have a little bit more an advantage, is that you're kind of blossoming on your own. They're kind of letting you blossom and do what you want to do without having to put too much pressure. I mean, they're still putting pressure on you, right?
Yeah.
But not to the point like I had a lot of pressure. I still had a curfew at 18 years old, 19 years old. I had a curfew until I moved out. Yeah. That was super hard for me because I'm trying to be an adult. I had a job that worked late hours. Like, I was trying to live out and live life. And that was very hard for me. So when I moved out, shit, my mental health improved, but my finances decreased. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's something that you have, you know, going for you. But I found this quote it was another podcast on Instagram that I happened to scroll upon, but they said children of immigrants pay rent with their mental health. They don't pay rent with money. They pay rent with mental health. And I felt that. Because your parents will be like, well, we don't charge you rent. We don't charge you rent. We don't charge you rent. Oh, but they'll be so passive aggressive.
They charge you with favors.
They charge you with favors. And the, oh, you owe me's. And the, oh, but you don't pay rent here. Kind of passive aggressive, throwing it in your face.
It's the leverage and blackmail. If you live under their house, it's like, oh, but you live under my roof. You're
still a functioning member of this family.
You have to.
Yeah.
You shouldn't you
it's not
feel
a choice.
Like you have to? Like,
it's not a choice.
They're gonna be like they're not trying to make you feel like that you have to do something.
Because they're not charging you rent, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the only because I feel like if they did charge you rent, they would be like, okay, well, he can do whatever he wants. He pays rent, right?
Still not.
And it's the other way around. It's kind of like, oh, we don't charge you rent, so the least you could do is go do this, you know? And that's kind of, I don't know if that feels kind of like, kind of manipulative-y. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But That's another point. That's another point that we'll go into. Like, how do you set boundaries?
Oh, that involves research there.
Yeah.
But I think we're doing enough benefit to them already. Wouldn't you think? Actually, giving them information of what is machismo, what is familismo.
Yeah.
They be understood. Like, oh, it opens just to know something, because ignorance is bliss.
And I saw like there's a lot of podcasts, but no one is putting their audio on YouTube. Like, I was looking for like Latina podcasts, first generation Latina podcasts, Mexican American oldest daughter podcasts. There was nobody on YouTube. So I'm like, if I can tap into that, bro, that's my audience. I want my Mexican American first generation black sheep that don't feel like they fit in with their family. Like, bro, hit me up. I'm your girl. Like, because I feel like there are a lot of us.
Yeah.
We don't fit the mold. We don't fit the first generation Mexican American Latina mold. We don't.
No, because we were more privileged than most from where we were born. Because most have it rough.
We were very whitewashed.
Yes, we were very
let's not even candy coat it.
Look at the difference. No, sure.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I'm gonna put this. Yeah, but what I was talking about to you earlier is my audience is I want this podcast or my content, my material to reach the me's out in the world, the first generation, oldest daughter, Mexican American, Americanized women, young women, even older, even if you're in your 30s, if you don't feel like you don't fit the mold in your family, if you feel like you're too Mexican to be American or too American to be Mexican, like, dude, come chill with me, come kick it with me. Like, I am right in the middle where there are some things that I pick and choose from the Mexican culture. I can be white as you want,
I can be as Mexican as
and I could
me.
be as beaner as you want me to be. Like, but that's the beauty of having those two identities is you can identify as much as you can because you're equally both, right? Yes. I'm equally as Mexican. I will never let anybody tell me that I'm too one way or another. Mm-hmm. I am equally Mexican as I am American. Yeah. Like, I'm equally proud to be American as I am Mexican. Yes. Plain and simple. So that's the thing is that, like, hey, some American cultures and customs I do want to incorporate into my life. And some of the Mexican traditions, the older traditions, I want to keep that. I want to keep it and pass it on to my kids. But it's just a matter of what healthy traditions, what healthy customs. Yes. And how do you tailor it for
Hannah
you?
Montana it.
Yeah. Like, and how do you customize it for your family? Not when you have kids, not every single kid is going to want to identify one way or another, But that's just another tangent for kids we'll have enough for another day. But what I'm really trying to bring home is that nobody gave us a manual, Luis. Nobody gave us a guide. The oldest daughters that are multicultural, we have two cultures being brought up with, and we're trying to navigate how to make our parents proud, how to be proud Mexicans, and how to not even just be proud, just be happy. Mm-hmm. Be happy in your own sense of the word. Yes. And how to find our place. That's one thing that I feel like us as first gen, oldest daughters that don't fit the mold is like, we don't know how to take up space because we've been told by our Mexican parents es calladitas es más bonitas, and try not to fit in and try to fit in and not to be too loud or boisterous or try not to stand out. I think a lot of our culture is stay under the radar. Mm-hmm. And I want to fucking break that shit. I want us to be like, yo, I'm fucking here. I am here. If you don't like me, pues a la verga, whatever. But I'm here. I want the girls like me to take up space. Mm-hmm. Even girls, guys, whatever. If you're in the same situation, because Luis and I, even though we came from the situation, we're in very different places mentally.
Very.
But I like seeing you get individualized and you come up with your own beliefs and your values and your morals. And I really respect that because you're taking that risk by individualizing yourself from your parents and not getting their approval. But you're saying, fuck it, because I'm doing what I want to do. It makes me happy, and I think that that's going to be the goal is to try to make people aware of like, these situations are real. Yeah. And not a lot of people are talking about them. And if they are, they're very taboo. So I'm here to say, fuck the taboos. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all for today.
Are you sure?
Make sure to stay tuned in for the next podcast. I don't know when we're gonna post it, but as soon as Luis gets this edited, we posting it. We posting it. I'm exploiting my little brother for editing skills. So
what?
All right. Make sure to
$5 an hour.
I was gonna say like, comment, and subscribe.
Like, comment, and subscribe down below. And for you guys on the podcast, on
Give us
Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, give us a rating. Tell us what you like about it, and send us leaving the ratings what you if you relate to this, and if you don't, send us questions.
Give us some topics to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Whether you're first gen, not first gen, whether you're Mexican American, not Mexican American, whether you're Hawaiian, Filipino, black, white, you come from whatever background. I feel like there's always a story to tell. Mm-hmm. So,
talking about Hawaii, you heard of the Maui flowers?
Oh my gosh.
Don't be scared. This is Luis post editing, and just want to let you know, thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of this podcast. And as one of my favorite YouTubers says, health is wealth in 2023. So do something good out there in the world, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Peace.